Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So yes, today we will be playing from this lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, verses 33 to 35.
Goswami is concluding the chapter on the discussion of the Lord in the heart by explaining to Maharaj Parikshit, and I've just given you the answer to your first question: what should people in general do? What's their duty in life? To be fixed upon the Supreme Lord and go back to Godhead. And he's outlined the yoga process preceded by Virat Rupa meditation. If you can recall, Prabhupada explained that there are 3 ways one can get to Brahmaloka: pious activities, meditation on the Virat Rupa or Hiranyagarbha, or by the yoga system. And from that position one can go further. If one is purified sufficiently and becomes fixed upon the goal of the personality of Godhead, then he can go further. But that's one of the indirect methods, and the devotional process is direct and the devotional process is preferred. So now in text 33, Shukadeva Goswami says, "For those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna." So that's a conclusion. If you look at the earlier parts of the discussion, it may seem that all of this over here is the answer, but now he's saying definitively, this is the best. Now a little Bhagavad Gita quiz. Where in Bhagavad Gita is this same understanding confirmed? There are a number of verses. Prabhupada quotes several of them. Some verses in Bhagavad Gita, please, where Krishna confirms, "For those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna." Which, in English translation?
The destination that is through all the processes such as studying of the Vedas, performance of sacrifices, and so on. Whatever is achieved by through all these processes is surpassed by the process of devotional service.
Okay. Very good. There's many more. Yes. Translation? Amongst all the systems of yoga. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the comparison of the yoga system, the best of all yoga systems, is the system of devotion. What else? 2 down and about 6 more to go. What about when Krishna compares the system of knowledge to the system of devotion? One who follows the path of knowledge after many, many births and deaths may come to the right conclusion. And that right conclusion is... Okay. And the translation? After many, many lives, births and deaths, Yanavan Mam Prapadyate. Such a person surrenders unto me because he's understood what? Vasudeva is everything. And such a great soul is rare. Amongst all jnanis, the best is the one who understands that Krishna is everything. And then he surrenders to Krishna. Amongst all yogis, the one that's the best is the one that abides in great faith serving him. Amongst all the other processes that are auspicious and elevating, they're surpassed and already included within the process, they're surpassed by, and included, the benefits are included within the process of devotion. That's sufficient, but there's more. Think about the conclusion that Krishna makes in the whole of Bhagavad Gita. Parjanya Maharaj, what's the concluding statement that Krishna makes in Bhagavad Gita? His, you can say his last instruction. Everybody knows this verse. Sarvadharmam. Can you recite? Nervous? Okay. You just know the right button. I don't know the right button. Translation. Okay. So many other dharmas, while they're good, they should be understood to be in a secondary position to the essence of the whole instruction of Bhagavad Gita, surrender unto Krishna. And when one does that, those things are accomplished. Any others? There are others. Give a hint. You're going to ask you this question. Krishna is asked by Arjuna, which do you consider is better? Meditation upon the personal form or the impersonal feature of you? Which does Krishna consider better? Okay. And why does he say so? But specifically from Bhagavad Gita, he says, both will give you to the right conclusion, but this other path is inferior because it's very difficult to fix your mind upon the formless for those who are embodied. And it's indirect. Even if one can accomplish that, it doesn't reach the conclusion. Still, one has to come to the position, this is what you were going to say, that one has to come to the position of surrender. So that's another of the sarva dharmams that one is supposed to parityajya, abandon. Okay. You knew the answers all along. You're just testing me to see if I can draw it out of you. Okay. Now there's a similar idea expressed in the first canto of this same Srimad Bhagavatam. What is that verse? It's one of the... I'll coax it out of you. The sages of Naimisharanya ask, what is the essence of all the teachings within all the Vedas? Can you explain that in a succinct fashion? What is that? What is the answer? A little bit louder, please. I can't hear. Well, it's the first, it's 6 and 7 from chapter 2. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojata Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayada Haitakam. And? That verse also works, but because that's part of the series of verses that answers that question. But the culmination of the teaching of all the Vedas, rather than the parts or partial understandings of the Vedas, is devotional service. The next verse, which is also very straightforward, he just says the same thing in a different way. He says that Lord Brahma, the first created living being, he heard this knowledge of the Vedas imparted within the heart from the Supreme Lord. He studied 3 times, Prabhupada explains, as is the tradition within the Vedic system. Brahma started that tradition, and he reached the same conclusion. What is that? Attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of all religion. So, whether it's meditation on Virat Rupa, or whether it's the yoga system, or whether it's the knowledge system, or whether it's the dhyan system, or whatever the system, its culmination is in devotion to the personality of Godhead. Okay, we just covered 2 verses. Now, we could speak great length on those 2 verses because they're essence understandings. I don't want to try to finish the chapter. And this next verse is something of an illustration of the Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate verse, only we're going to do it in about half an hour instead of Bahu Janmas. It's by taking help from the intelligence to understand the existence of the soul and the existence of the super soul, and to take shelter in devotion and service unto the super soul. Are you ready? No, it's many lifetimes in half an hour, so you've got to be very attentive. And it's very, very systematic. Prabhupada begins, read the verse. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Purport. Prabhupada says, one of the common arguments that people give is, I can't see God, so how do I know that He exists? The empiricist. How do I know that He exists? So then Prabhupada explains that if one takes help from the intelligence, if one sees through the eyes of even reason, or the combination of reason and scripture, then one can perceive, or through the acts of perception and through the act of taking help from the intelligence, one can understand conclusively the existence of the Supersoul. Okay, so there's 7 steps. Oh, note takers. First step number 1 is, Prabhupada writes, one can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. Like going back to Descartes, as I mentioned, I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. I'm not sure that I exist, but when I think about it, I can experience my thinking about it. And by that experience of thinking, I can positively assert I exist. That's the first step. The next step comes from separating the thinking process from the thinker and the object that one thinks about from the thinker. That's step number 2. You're in samadhi over here? You got the first step? You positively exist? Are you convinced? If I pinch you, I won't do that, but if I pinched you, you would say, ouch! Something like that. You exist, right? But that sensation, that thing that you perceive, and the perceiver, the person who's perceiving being pinched, is different. What do you think? You like that? Okay, I won't pinch you, don't worry. Prabhupada writes, maybe not abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that his hand, leg, head, hair, and the limbs of his body are parts and parcels of the body, but as such, each of those limbs, head, hand, so forth, is not myself. Just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from things that he sees. I've done this in elementary schools. Here's a nice thing: if you have a group of young kids and they're kind of like really restless, like kids often are, ask the group of kids, who's the smartest kid in the class? And they'll all giggle and they'll all look at the one person who's the smartest kid. They all know who the smartest kid in the class is. And sometimes they say, yeah, I'm the smartest kid in the class. Sometimes they're humble and say, no. But everybody knows who's the smartest kid in the class. Okay, so then you ask them to stand up. Whoa, they're going to show off how smart they are. Okay, now point to your hand. Point to your arm. Point to your head. Point to your knee. Point to your elbow. Now point to yourself. And many times they go like this. So who are you? then you have everyone's attention. So they're now the point. You say, my hand, my head, my arm, my leg, my body, and then there's me. There's the object that's possessed and the possessor of the object, like my shirt, my glasses, my shoes. And then there's me. So we don't think we're the coverings, we're the person inside. So with a little help of intelligence, one can understand there's not first I exist, and then the I that exists is different than the body. Okay, now we're ready for lesson number 3. It's just an extension that I'm not this body, but then so many other things, whatever are the objects of perception. Can it not only physical objects, but sound, taste, smell, touch. That's different than, the object is different than the perceiver. The perceived is different than the perceiver. And that in order to, and that's still the second one. So the third one is that the act of perceiving is a dependent act. The act of walking is a dependent act. The act of hearing, the act of smelling is a dependent act. We don't do it independently. Prabhupada writes, all of our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. We have our 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, 5 working senses, he lists them. And we also have mind, intelligence, and ego. We have all those things. They're supplied by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of material nature. And it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by material nature, and thus I, the perceiver of this body, or the possessor or occupant of this body, cannot move the body or cannot make the body do what the body does independently. Little thoughtfulness, you can come to that conclusion. Like Prabhupada's example is digesting your food. Okay, now I'm going to digest my food. It doesn't work like that. And sometimes if we have some illness, we are not able to function properly. Or by some accident, we lose our ability to move, to walk. So our ability to do things is dependent upon agency that's applied to us. That's the third step. We're not independent. The acts of perceiving, the acts of locomotion are dependent, not independent. I, the perceiver, am not dependent.
Hare Krishna, we can pause here for today. So very nicely, step by step, it is being explained that how we are not this body and how we are different from this body. That example also I liked of pointing out to the kids and telling them, asking them body parts one by one, and then making them realize that these body parts and the individual self, because the soul, they are different entities. So any volunteers from today who would like to share what they liked most, like the most from today's lecture? Hare Krishna.
I'll probably go ahead, Mataji. And
Yes, yes, Prabhu, please. Hare Krishna.
we, towards the end, it was a very funny thing. It's not easy to see, I mean, to just hear it and see what is happening. Maharaj said, "And are you in samadhi?" It probably was somebody who was dozing off in the class. And then he said, "If I pinch you, will you feel it? But I'm not going to pinch you." So it was actually a funny thing happening there. That was one. And for all of us who have been, or I think all most of us at least, who have been hearing these lectures, it's so straightforward for us to think that we are not this body. At least we have a very theoretical understanding, and Maharaj is explaining it step by step. The first thing that comes up is, why are you even talking such rudimentary or elementary stuff to me? I'm here to hear Bhagavatam, which is beyond all of this. And that's a question. I don't know if it comes to others, if it definitely comes to me. In the world around us, if you look at something that's happening, at least in the West and to a good extent in India also, uh, there are people who are born in one gender, and they do all this. They are not happy with the gender in which they are born, and they try to make a gender change operation. And for such people, for a lot of time, for such people, they have a lot of confusion in their mind. Why am I in this body? I feel this way, I believe this way, and my body is this, but somehow nature or God has given me a different body, etc. So the identification with body is super complete for many of them. We may not have that much identification with the body, but as we go to other professions, like say the acting profession or the some other like being a public person, etc., there is so much of identification with the body, and many times youngsters especially, they feel shameful if their body is in a particular way, if it is fat or if it is thin, or if it's in this complexion or that complexion, etc. So many such things do happen. So it is the matter of fact that there are good number of folks who actually very strongly believe that they are this body. That's one point. And one example is, if you might have been following Elon Musk, the super billionaire or trillionaire, however you call it. He had a son, and this son converted himself to a woman, and then he's a daughter. And he said from that time onwards, this is called as the woke mentality. And from that time onwards, he's against this woke mentality, and he didn't like his son converting his gender. And so, as part of whatever Donald Trump is doing, he's trying to stop such things happening. In fact, even in India, there are people who like to do this, who like to aid others to change their genders. They were funding things in India. Why? Because once you have a set of people who are confused about the gender, right from childhood, it was taught to them. Your body could be anything, but your gender is something in your mind. And so the more and more they think about the gender here in the mind, it would mean that they get identified with body. And the more a person identifies with the body, somebody else can control them, because they are not thinking of higher things in life. And no matter if any external person can come and say, do this or do that, they'll go ahead and do it, as long as somebody is helping them to identify with their newfound body. And that's the gift that Srila Prabhupada is giving us, that we are not at all falling prey to the mass propaganda that is coming up around us, that identify yourself with your body. At least we have a solid, clear understanding. So many times we have been hearing it, that now it's almost become like, yeah, it's normal. We are not this body. That's one thing. And the second thing is, it's a matter of culture. It's a matter of identity, definitely, but it's a matter of culture, that we are distinct from our mind. And this distinction from our mind, our intelligence as such, that that this mind and intelligence, we get it probably by some karma, etc., but it can definitely be purified, is so useful because people get, most of us get so proud in thinking, I am so intelligent, or I can really control things. Or we get depressed. Oh, I cannot control this. I don't know how to do this. We function so much in terms of our identity of our mind and intelligence. And Prabhupada is coming to give us that there is a purified state of mind and intelligence that is yet to come. Whereas the material state of mind and intelligence is, I discriminate things, I categorize things to exploit it and say how I can be the enjoyer of it. Whereas the same thing in spiritual side is that I see how I can categorize and use it for the service of Krishna. The mundane side is how everything relates to me. The spiritual side is how everything relates to Krishna. And it is in the pursuit of this identity that how I can control, how I can discriminate, how I can create my USP, that people spend tens of years in education, people spend several decades in trying to prove themselves in occupation, but it's with the wrong identity altogether. So it looks so simple, but it has a profound impact in our life. We run our life many times either by knowing these uh, truths from the scripture, or sometimes we may not know it, but we run our life almost like uh, wasting our life there. So that's the value add which Prabhupada is giving here, and which Maharaj is transparently passing it on to us. And it's very easy for someone to say, yeah, Prabhupada said it, most people don't like it, let me do something else, let me not speak about all this stuff, let me just tell a nice story and get by. But that's not what Maharaj is doing. He knew that his spiritual master had a particular emphasis, and as a representative of his spiritual master, he is taking time to go through that, because he's through, by saying this, he is giving step by step what his spiritual master is giving, and he's living in the relationship with his own spiritual master. That's it, man.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's always so nice to hear from you, and you make things very easy for us to understand. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Rajeshwari Pran Mataji, you are there on the call today. Would you like to say something? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Sorry, I'm just cooking and
No problem, Mataji. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Vivek Prabhu, would you like to say anything from today's session? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jaji. Pranam. Nothing much, Mataji. Shamkun Prabhu very nicely explained about this little elevated topic. And just one part where Shamkun Prabhu also started the joke part wherein the person was dozing off. There's another aspect where I found Maharaj mentioned that Bhaunam Janmanam Ante. So he said, we are not going to take so many lifetimes. You're just going to cover this topic in half an hour. So that's another humorous aspect of Maharaj, which I like to appreciate, Mataji. And obviously, the depth with which he's going to mention these 7 points. So that's very nice. That's all, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Kumarika Mataji, you would like to say anything today? Hare Krishna.
No, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Harisham Prabhu, anything from your side? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Nothing much, Mother. Just nothing technical or philosophical. I just liked a very like father and the son kind of conversation which was happening there when Maharaj is asking some questions about some verses, and then devotee is responding back, and Maharaj just joking with them humorously, is goading them to give the answers. It's very nice. It's just a very casual atmosphere where the way sometimes I used to talk with Prahlad and Putra like that, like Maharaj is also speaking to devotees there. I just appreciated. I just happy to see and hear devotees having such a nice, wonderful relationship with Maharaj. That's my appreciation.
True, that is. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sweta Mataji, anything from your side? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Today's session was really good. I really don't have any question on the session, but I read the comment from the Brajeshwari Mataji. I know she is busy. We can discuss it later. She is writing that for the training, what Shyamkund Prabhu asked, she said training is for acquiring a particular skill or particular behavior. But our acharyas are exactly telling us opposite of it. I didn't understand because for me, training is still acquiring a skill or behavior. It can be in terms of spiritual thing. It can be my motivation, my dedication, my commitment is entirely opposite to the material thing, but still it is for acquiring something, some kind of a skill or some kind of behavior which is useful in service to Krishna or in devotions. So that point I didn't understand. So that if Shyamkund Prabhu can explain.
Mataji, the point was made by Rajeshwari Pran Mataji, right? So you should ask her. So please, if Rajeshwari Pran Mataji can take a few.
She's busy, Prabhu. That's why I asked you because she said she's cooking. So that's why
Maybe,
I didn't.
maybe if she's busy today, Monday, she can let us know what she had in mind when she said that. Best that she can explain it. Rajeshwari Pran
Sure.
Mataji, okay? You can tell now or Monday. Okay, she's busy, I guess. Monday we'll discuss.
Yeah,
I will do on Monday, or I will leave a voice message, Madhu.
okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
So we can end the session for today, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. So we will discontinue today, and Monday it will be resumed again. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare